The contract marriage. Ava Sinclair never believed her life would be reduced to a contract. She was fiery, stubborn, and too independent to be tied down by anything resembling tradition. But when her father's company slipped dangerously close to bankruptcy, the solution came in the form of Ethan Blackwell, the man who had been both her childhood rival and the bane of her existence. Ethan, CEO of Blackwell Enterprises, carried his arrogance like a tailored suit. Cold eyes, sharp words, and a smile that never quite reached his lips. He stood in her father's office, holding a sleek folder as though it contained nothing more than business paperwork. But when he slid it across the desk, Ava's world tilted. A marriage contract. "You can't be serious," she snapped, flipping the pages as if skimming them might reveal some hidden joke. "I've never been more serious," Ethan said smoothly, leaning back in his chair. "Your father's company gets saved. My board stops pressuring me to settle down. A convenient solution. And what do I get?" Ava shot back, her eyes narrowing. His gaze locked on hers, cool and unyielding. "You get the Blackwell name, and the privilege of being Mrs. Blackwell. Surely that's enough." Ava laughed bitterly. Privilege? Being chained to the most insufferable man alive? For the first time, Ethan's expression flickered annoyance, maybe even a spark of something else. But he covered it quickly. "If you think you're so opposed, walk away. Let your father's company sink. I don't care either way." It was the cruelest bluff she'd ever faced, because she knew he cared. If not about her, then about control. And Ava wasn't about to let him think he'd already won. "Fine," she said through gritted teeth, signing her name with a flourish. "But don't think for a second that this makes you my husband. You're just my business partner." Ethan's lips curved into the faintest smirk. "We'll see about that, Mrs. Blackwell." The wedding was perfect on the surface. White roses lined the Blackwell Estate's grand hall. Chandeliers glittered like frozen stars, and every guest whispered about the union no one had seen coming. Ava stood in silk and lace, the picture of a blushing bride. Only she wasn't blushing. She was fuming. Ethan had orchestrated every detail, right down to the vows. He leaned close during the ceremony, his whisper brushing her ear. "Smile, Mrs. Blackwell. Everyone's watching." Ava's lips curved, but it wasn't a smile, it was a warning. "If you think I'm going to play the obedient wife, you're delusional." He smirked, sliding the ring onto her finger with deliberate slowness. "I don't need obedience. I need you to play your part. That's all." The reception blurred into clinking glasses and polite laughter. Ava endured the congratulations, the gossiping stares, the endless speeches. But when the crowd thinned and the mansion quieted, reality sank in. She and Ethan were truly married, bound not by love but by ink and signatures. Their new home was Ethan's penthouse, a glass tower overlooking the city. Impeccably modern, intimidatingly clean. It was nothing like Ava's world. She dropped her suitcase by the door and crossed her arms. "I'll take the guest room," she declared. Ethan's brow arched. "We're married. What will people think if they find out we're living separately under the same roof?" She shot him a glare sharp enough to cut glass. "They'll think I'm smart enough not to share a bed with a man who treats me like a business acquisition." For the first time that day, Ethan didn't have a comeback. He just studied her, his expression unreadable. Then finally he said, "Fine. But don't forget, Ava, the longer you fight me, the harder you'll fall when you realize I always get what I want." Her heart stuttered annoyingly, traitorously, because for a split second, she wondered what exactly it was that Ethan Blackwell wanted. The penthouse was big enough that Ava could almost pretend Ethan wasn't there. Almost. She tried settling into the guest room, decorating the sterile space with little pieces of herself, a throw blanket, her favorite books, a framed photo of her mom. But no matter what she did, Ethan's presence was everywhere. The echo of his shoes on the marble, the scent of his cologne lingering in the halls, the sharp baritone of his voice when he was on business calls. Dinner the first night was silent. He ordered steak, rare. She cooked pasta, spicy. They ate at opposite ends of the long dining table like rivals at a truce meeting. "Are you planning to sulk every night?" Ethan asked finally, cutting into his steak. "I'm not sulking," Ava snapped. "I'm surviving." He smirked, sipping his wine. "You know, most women would kill to be in your position. A penthouse, a Blackwall name, financial security." Ava's fork clattered against her plate. Most women don't want to marry a man who treats them like a line item in his portfolio. For once, his gaze softened just barely. "And what do you want, Ava?" The question startled her. Not because it was asked, but because it sounded genuine. She stared at him across the candlelit table, words caught in her throat. "What do I want?" Definitely not this dot, and yet, she couldn't deny the strange flutter in her chest. Whenever he looked at her too long, she broke the silence first. "I want freedom." His jaw tightened. "Then prove you can handle the cage first." The words landed like a challenge. And Ava Sinclair never turned down a challenge. Chapter 4. The first crack. Ava woke up the next morning to the smell of coffee. Not hers, she hadn't even unpacked her kettle yet. Padding into the kitchen in her oversized t-shirt, she found Ethan already there. Sleeves rolled up, tie undone, hair slightly mussed. He looked less like the ruthless CEO and more like a man. She hated noticing that. He slid a mug across the counter without looking at her. "Don't get used to it. I don't play house." "I wouldn't dream of it," Ava muttered, taking the mug anyway. The warmth spread through her palms, a traitorous comfort. They drank in silence, the city buzzing beneath the penthouse windows. But when Ava caught his eyes lingering on her bare legs, just for a second, heat flushed her cheeks. He didn't comment. Neither did she. Yet the air between them shifted, charged. Chapter 5. The Public Act. 3 days into their arrangement, Ethan informed her they were attending a gala. "The world needs to see us together," he said, adjusting his cufflinks. "The world doesn't care," Ava argued, slipping into the emerald silk dress she'd chosen just to spite him backless. Daring. The kind of dress that would make him uncomfortable. But when his eyes swept over her, sharp and unreadable, Ava realized she'd underestimated him. Ethan didn't look uncomfortable. He looked possessive. At the gala, he played the perfect husband. Hand at the small of her back, murmuring introductions, whispering things only she could hear. "Smile wider, Ava. They're watching." She leaned in, lips grazing his ear just enough to make his jaw clench. "Careful, Ethan. Keep touching me like that, and people might think you actually like me." His smirk was dark, dangerous. "Maybe I do." The words lingered long after the music stopped. Chapter 6. The Argument. The next evening, tensions snapped. Ava came home late after meeting a friend, and Ethan was waiting in the living room. Tie loosened, drink in hand. "You should have told me where you were going," he said coolly. Ava tossed her purse on the couch. "I didn't realize I needed your permission." "It's not about permission. It's about appearances." His voice was low, sharp, but beneath it, something else. "Worry?" She stepped closer, fire sparking in her chest. "No, Ethan. It's about control. That's all you care about." His glass hit the table harder than necessary. He rose, towering over her, eyes storm dark. "And you think I don't care about you at all?" The silence between them pulsed. Ava's breath hitched, her defiance faltering for the briefest moment. His hand almost lifted to her face. But he stopped, fingers curling into a fist instead. "Good night, Ava," he said tightly, turning away. But neither of them slept that night. Chapter 7. When control breaks. The storm outside had swallowed the city whole. Thunder rolled against the penthouse glass, lightning flashing across the skyline. Ava sat curled on the couch with a blanket, pretending not to notice Ethan pacing with a half-empty glass of whiskey in his hand. He was looser tonight. The sharp edges of the CEO dulled, his tie long discarded, his shirt undone at the collar. His eyes found hers more often than usual, lingering, hungry, like the storm outside was brewing inside him too. When the lights flickered out, Ava jumped, her lips brushing his shoulder as she shifted closer by instinct. He stilled. She froze. Their eyes met in the dark. Then it happened. Ethan's hand gripped her waist, pulling her against him as though he'd been holding back for far too long. His mouth found hers, hard and desperate, tasting of whiskey and want. Ava gasped against him, and his arm only tightened, drawing her into his lap like she belonged there. "Ethan," she started, but he silenced her with another kiss. Slower this time, burning with intent. "Don't tell me to stop," he muttered against her lips, voice ragged. "Not tonight." Ava didn't. She couldn't. Chapter 8. The first night. They stumbled into his room, the storm howling outside. But the only thing Ava heard was the thundering of her own heartbeat. Ethan pressed her back against the wall, his forehead resting against hers as if to ground himself. His breath was heavy, his control unraveling. "You drive me insane," he whispered, brushing his lips down her jaw, her throat. "Days of pretending, I don't want this. I can't anymore." His words sank into her, igniting something she'd tried to deny since the contract began. Her fingers tangled in his shirt, pulling him closer. Their kisses deepened, turning from rough to tender, from desperate to impossibly sweet. As if every touch meant more than either dared admit. They found their way to the bed, where the world outside ceased to exist. The storm could rage, the city could fall, but in that moment, there was only them, every wall, every defense breaking apart as passion and need consumed them. It wasn't just hunger. It wasn't just escape. It was something Ava hadn't expected to find in Ethan Blackwell. Fire and gentleness, demand and devotion, all tangled into one unforgettable night. When the storm finally quieted, they lay tangled in silence. Ethan brushed a strand of hair from her face, his usual mask gone. For the first time, he looked vulnerable. "This wasn't supposed to happen," Ava whispered. His lips curved, tired but soft. "Then let's stop pretending it didn't." Chapter 9. The fever. The night after the storm left more than silence in its wake. Ethan tried to throw himself back into work, brushing off what had happened between them, as if it were just a slip. But Ava knew better. She felt it in every lingering glance, every touch of hesitation when he passed her in the halls. And then he collapsed. It started with him looking pale at breakfast, brushing off her concern with his usual arrogance. "I'm fine, Ava. Don't start fussing." But by evening, the fever hit. He was sweating, coughing, stubbornly trying to type on his laptop until Ava yanked it away. "Stop pretending you're made of steel," she snapped, pressing a hand to his burning forehead. "You're sick, Ethan." His laugh was weak, but his eyes softened as he watched her. "Never thought I'd see the day you'd worry about me." She rolled her eyes, tucking the blanket tighter around him. "Don't flatter yourself. I just don't want my business partner dying on me." But when he shivered, she didn't hesitate, slipping onto the bed beside him, wrapping herself against his side to keep him warm. His breath evened out slowly, his head resting against her shoulder. And for the first time, Ethan Blackwell didn't look like the ruthless CEO. He looked human. Chapter 1. Of a care he didn't expect. The fever lasted through the night. Ava stayed by his side, pressing cool cloths to his skin, coaxing him to sip water. Every time he stirred, half asleep, his hand searched for hers. She let him hold it. Once, near dawn, he whispered her name so soft it made her chest ache. When he finally opened his eyes, bleary but clearer, he found her slumped at his side, asleep with her hand still clutching his. His thumb brushed over her knuckles, guilt and something warmer twisting in his chest. "You should hate me," he murmured to himself, voice hoarse. "So why do you look at me like that?" Ava stirred, blinking awake, catching his gaze. "Because even arrogant men get sick," she teased softly. Then, more quietly, "And because I don't hate you, Ethan. Not anymore." For once, he had no smirk, no witty retort. Just silence, and the weight of something new settling between them. Chapter 11. Cracks in the armor. Ethan insisted he was fine once the fever broke. But his body told a different story. Weak, unsteady, he tried to rise from the bed only to stumble. Ava caught him instantly. "Stubborn idiot," she muttered, forcing him back down. He smirked faintly, but his usual sharpness was gone. Instead, he let his head fall against her shoulder, heavy, defeated. Then, to her shock, his arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her down onto the bed with him. "Ethan," she started, startled. Don't move," he murmured, burying his face into the curve of her neck. His breath was hot, uneven. "Just stay." Ava froze, her heart hammering. Ethan Blackwell, the man who commanded boardrooms, who never bent, who wore arrogance like a shield, was clinging to her like he'd fall apart if she left. She exhaled softly, stroking his damp hair back from his forehead. "I'm not going anywhere." He shuddered against her, tightening his hold. And slowly the heat between them shifted, comfort melting into something deeper. His lips brushed her skin, tentative at first, then desperate. Ava's fingers curled into his shirt as he kissed along her jaw, her throat, whispering her name like a prayer. That night, the world outside ceased to exist. It wasn't just fire this time, it was tenderness wrapped in heat, vulnerability entwined with passion. He held her as if she was the only thing that had ever mattered. And Ava, for all her resistance, gave herself to him fully, letting the walls between them fall away. Chapter 12. The past he couldn't hide. Subscribe and comment for Chapter 12.